If you followed my YouTube channel in the past, you're probably aware of previous tutorial videos I've done on the JU88 A-4 covering single pass and multiple pass techniques. After the recent release of the JU88 C6, I noticed how relatively easy it was to bust tanks with it using a shallow angle attack dive technique, and that inspired me to revisit the A-4 in hopes of duplicating that technique. Well, due to differences in gun sight placement, I couldn't get much happening with a shallow approach in the A-4, but I did work up a different technique that works pretty well, and it goes like this. Make sure the A-4 trim is 100% tail heavy. Dive start altitude is 700 to 800 meters. ID your target. Ensure the gun sight is aligned directly above the target. Gauge when to start the attack dive by keeping the gun sight slightly above the horizon while observing the gap between the target tank and the end of these wires coming off the yoke. I push the nose down to start the dive when the space of that gap gets around here. But let's back up for a second. Make sure your airspeed is under 300 kilometers per hour at dive start, or it will be difficult to get the aircraft nose pointed down into a dive with all that tail heavy trim, because you want to get from here to here as quickly as you can. The longer it takes, the more forward movement is occurring, and that will cause your dive to be steeper than planned. Once into the dive, I place the target tank on the lower horizontal line of the gun sight. I either freeze the stick position there and wait for the tank to disappear beneath the gun sight, or I might pull back on the stick slightly as the tank is going beneath the sight to make sure I have sufficient room to recover from the dive. In either case, when I calculate the tank is in this area, I hit the bomb release button. Finding the correct bomb release point can be tricky because it varies depending on aircraft speed and dive angle at bomb release. This particular technique is similar to the same techniques I employ in the IL-2 and PE-2, where bomb release occurs at a point after the tank has moved below the visible gun sight glass. And the JU88 A-4 is no different in the sense that it just takes a little practice to develop a consistent attack dive angle and consistent dive speed to determine your release point. In these 21 screenshots, you can see my attack dive angle falls between 35 and 38 degrees for 18 of those 21 dives, almost half of them at 36 degrees, with 3 outliers of 39, 42, and 43 degrees. I'm rolling through them quick, but you can hit pause to see them in detail. So I categorize that as a high angle dive falling between 35 and 45 degrees. My speed at bomb release is between 400 and 450 kph. I sometimes exceed that by a little, like maybe up to 460, but it doesn't seem to make much difference. And I have found for those dive angles and speed ranges, my bomb release window is open when the tank falls into this area below the gun sight. Your release point may be a little different depending on your dive angle and speed. It just takes a little trial and error practice to work it out. As far as bomb release altitude, you'll see in the example mission coming up that I cut it pretty close by dropping as low as possible but still having enough room to recover from the dive. You don't necessarily have to do that. If you're more comfortable dropping higher, you just need to work out the correct release point in conjunction with your dive angle and speed. Now you may be wondering about a few things like, can you use the dive brakes with this technique? Yes. However, if you're making multiple passes, your speed coming out of the dive is going to be much slower, and it will be problematic getting back up to 700 or 800 meters during your turnaround. Can you start your dive lower or higher than the 700 to 800 meter recommended range? Yes, but if you dive from a lower altitude, you will have less time to get your dive lined up correctly on the target. If you drop from higher altitude, you need to reduce the throttle, or that higher dive speed will force your nose to lift when your trim is set to 100% tail heavy. No, you don't have to set 100% tail heavy trim, but you're going to have to release bombs from a considerably higher altitude than what I'm demonstrating in the example mission, or you will splat on the ground. As far as bomb loads, any loadout will work. It depends primarily on how many tanks you need to destroy and how much time you're able to spend over the target area. If you have your accuracy down, the heavy loadouts of big and small bombs are the best payout for this technique. In the example mission, I destroyed 20 tanks with the 4 SC-250, 28 SC-50 loadout. Turnaround time depends on 3 factors: total bomb weight, fuel weight, and ambient temperature. The heavier the bomb load and the hotter the outside temperature, the longer it will take. And the more bombs you take, the more fuel you have to take to do all those passes. I plan for roughly 1 minute per pass. If you're carrying a super heavy bomb load, it may be a little bit over a minute initially, but as you continue to drop bomb weight and burn fuel, the turnarounds get progressively faster. You will also need to drop slightly higher on the first few passes because of loaded aircraft weight. You'll see in the example mission on that first pass I dropped pretty low and barely recovered in time. You can get a lot of mileage out of the 28 SC-50 loadout. I dropped single bombs on light tanks and pairs on medium and heavy tanks with a .05 bomb delay. You can drop them all as singles, but it takes a really long time, and if you're not putting them down perfectly, you may end up having to make multiple passes to get a kill on a single heavy or medium tank. The thing about bomb salvo mode selection is if you drop short, those extra bombs might get you a kill, but if you drop long, you just wasted a lot of bombs. That's why I go with pairs on the bigger tanks. This example mission was recorded in the SCG ground attack training server created by Limbo. The ambient temperature is 15 degrees, there's no wind, and my loadout is one of the heavier ones. I start at the target area with 50% fuel. Please take note that when I'm looking out the back window to check my bomb accuracy, I'm also scoping out the next target. So that's the high angle attack dive technique in the JU88 A4. If you have any questions, just post them in the comments. Thanks for watching. Peace out.